Hey guys, Ryan here coming at you again. So I'm going to do a little bit of a different video for you guys today. I'm going to tackle an issue, a theory, a conspiracy theory, if you will, that's been going on for decades. Big debate about it. But I'm going to tackle this not from the conventional means that it's always been discussed about. I'm going to tackle this from a musician's standpoint, from a left-handed guitarist standpoint. The Paul McCartney death hoax. I'm not going to say debate the traditional debate about it. You know, his ear changed over time. They said, you know, Paul's dead in songs. The Abbey Road cover with the shoes. I'm not going to go there. This is not what this video is about. I'm not here to debate the conspiracy theory itself. I am here to show you and to prove to you one way or the other, can someone mimic not only Paul McCartney's bass and guitar style, but did Paul McCartney pre-1966 have the same style and technique as post-1966 Paul McCartney? Okay, so coming from as a guitarist myself, you know, I've been playing, you know, since I was 16, you know, 24 years on and off. Yes, I play left-handed. Yes, if people know me, this is my left arm. This is my right arm. If you notice behind me, it says Marshall. It doesn't say Larsham. It's not inverted. I didn't invert this camera angle to, you know, play right-handed but show left-handed. I play left-handed. So I'm going to be pointing out things to you that, you know, to the untrained eye, to a non-musician's eye in regards to this theory, things that you would never pick up or notice. As a musician, you know, we pick up on things, we see how people play, we see their techniques. And I've noticed a lot of subtle things in the way he plays, the way he holds his guitar, the way he holds his bass, that to the untrained eye, musician or not, you would not pick up on. And these are points that are never discussed of whether or not this could be pulled off in real life or not. What needs to be done exactly from a musician standpoint to pull this off? I'm going to point it all out for you in this video, okay? So what I'm going to point out for you is a few different topics. We're going to cover Paul's right arm in regards to bass and guitar, Paul's left arm in regards to bass and guitar, his live performance playing and style. Can I mimic his style with my style? And then I will summarize exactly every point that needs to be done musically in order to pull this conspiracy theory off. Okay? So we're going to tackle this from a musician's point of view here. So let's do this, guys. Okay, so first of all, let's go over Paul McCartney's right arm and his left arm in regards to pre-1966 Paul on bass and guitar and post-1966 Paul on bass and guitar. And let's see if there's any similarities or differences in regards to how he holds his guitar, his arm angle, the way he holds his pick, how does he hold his fingers, his arm angle, how does he strum, and what does he do with his thumb? Let's check it out right now. Okay, so there you had some pics of Paul McCartney pre and post 1966 holding or playing his guitar. Now let's take a look at the similarities and or differences with pre-1966 Paul and post-1966 Paul holding and playing his bass. Okay, so there you go, guys. So in my opinion, from carefully analyzing his arm angle, what he does with his thumb, how he holds his chords, how he holds his pick, the way he curls his fingers and doesn't play out like that. Guys, there is virtually no difference from a left-handed or a guitarist's perspective in general of how he has played and held his bass and his guitar over decades, from the 60s onwards into the 2000s. The only subtle differences I noticed was a little bit of his arm angle. At some point earlier on, he was a little more this with his right arm, and now he's a little more out here. Other than that, it is virtually identical. This is something that you can't really teach someone because everybody has their own style of playing. And to adapt to someone else's style to play is almost impossible to play on a consistent daily basis. There was hardly any noticeable differences in terms of how he holds his hand, his fingers, his pick, and how he does his chords, how he holds the neck of his guitar out here, his fret, using his fingers on his fretboard, his thumb. There was hardly any differences at all. According to those picks, my opinion, that is the same person holding the guitar and bass in the exact same way from the 60s, pre-66 and post-66. It's the same person. But let's not stop there. Let's take a look at a live performance. Let's see if he actually played the same way. Okay, now I did comb YouTube for quite a while yesterday, trying to find the right footage, or some good footage anyway. And of course, pre-1966 Paul, he was with the Beatles a lot. And any footage of him playing live is, there's not very good footage, it's blurry. It didn't, obviously didn't have high definition cameras back then. But with the Beatles, there was 4 people. The cameras would always be on John for a while, then Ringo for a while, then on the audience for a while. From all of them, it was hard to find some footage where I could find of the same angle of, 1965 Paul, and then like say 2000 Paul from the same angle. I didn't want to get a different camera angle because I wanted you guys to see very specifically from the same angle how his arm angle looks, how he holds his guitar or his bass, how he strums from the same angle, obviously, because it's just a lot easier to compare that way. So I did find this footage of 1965 Paul, as opposed, and then going into 2012 Paul playing Yesterday. Okay, I can't play the sound because obviously for copyright and publishing reasons, I'm not allowed to do that. I'm not sure if I can overdub any commentary in the editing process, but we will see. If not, I'll still provide an explanation. So take a look at Paul 1965 and Paul 2012 playing Yesterday, and focus actually on his pick hand, what he's doing with his pick hand as he's strumming. Let's take a look. Okay guys, so there was Paul McCartney in transition from 1965 through to 2012. And again, if you were to notice and look at some specifics, the way that he was picking and plucking the strings, he was very open with his hand like this, very animated, okay? He does a lot of this, a lot of, big movements with his hand, with his fingers. It was the same in 65 as it was in 2012. Subtle differences, maybe not as animated, but again, it was the same type of finger picking he was using. And that's a technique that he uses himself. It's not unique to him. It's just, it was the same in 65 as it was in 2012, both live performances. Okay, so the exact same technique was being used. He was holding his guitar again in almost an identical fashion. A little bit difference on the arm angle with the right arm, but in my opinion, again, that was the exact same style. Okay, so now let's take a look at a live performance from Paul McCartney in 1991, and let's compare and contrast his playing style, standing up, with my style and we'll see if I can kind of emulate him. Let's take a look. Okay, so there's a clip of Paul McCartney in 1991. Now, let's break this down. I'm going to show you my playing style first, and then I will try to emulate Paul's playing style, and I will show you the differences, and we'll see if I can do, play the way Paul does, okay? So this is my home. I'm not going to look at my guitar. I'm just going to form a C chord without looking, and I'm going to, okay? So now take a look. Take a look at exactly how I'm holding my guitar. This is home for me. Take a look at how high up my guitar is on my body. Take a look at my pick hand, which is my left hand, where my fingers are. They are out. They're not in. They're out like this. Take a look at my arm angle. And take a look at how I strum when I strum. I strum with my fingers out, and I don't strum like this, like a lot of guitarists do. They use their shoulder and their upper arm. I strum like this, very much more so wrist control, and a little bit of forearm. If I was to really get into it playing live, I do a little more of that. Again, very little forearm action. It's all on my wrist. Now let's look at my right arm. Now look at my arm angle. It's very close to my elbow's very close to my body. Okay, very 90 degrees. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. There's a good shot of it right there. Okay, and look at how I'm holding my C chord. Look at where my thumb is here. This is very, 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 very crucial. I'll come in for you here. My thumb is above my middle finger, right here. Okay, that's home for me. That feels good. That feels natural. And you can also see, you don't see the larger part of my thumb here. Okay, it's behind the neck. This is comfortable for me. So this is my home right here. This is how I play. A little bit of bar chords, a little out of tune. That's how I play right here. This is my home. Now, if you noticed, if you picked up on or observational at all on how Paul plays, we'll go from me here. This is my home right here. And Paul is more out here. Okay. His arm, let's go from his right arm. So his arm, you've noticed, is a lot more straight. It's more, not perfectly straight, but it's a lot more straight. Again, with me, it's tucked in here. With him, it's more out here. His thumb, you'll notice, is always raised up here. Okay, I'll come in closer for you. I play more like this. He is more always raised. You always see this part of his thumb up here, and his thumb is always in line with his index finger. And he always plays in like a C, I'm in a C chord formation right now. He's always moving his arm up on the neck of the guitar in a C chord-ish formation. But what I mean by that is these two middle fingers are always higher, and the index and the pinky are always lower. And he always has his thumb above his index finger, right like this. Okay, and you'll always see his thumb up here. Okay, so when he's playing, again, I'm more up here and he's more out here. He plays with his guitar out more and down more here on the neck. It's not as angled as me. I'm more up here, he's more over here. Now I have more of a straight arm. You can see my thumb. And again, when you move up, like this is more kind of like what he does, right? It's more like this. And if you notice when he's picking, okay, with his left arm, I obviously pick with my fingers out. He picks and strums with his fingers in, like this. I use my pinky as a bridge right here to hold my left hand in place when I'm strumming and picking, right, like this. And he is more on the tip, okay? and he curls his fingers in like this, where I'm more out like this. Okay, now you'll notice also when he's strumming, if I had my acoustic on me, there's usually a circle here on the acoustic. He always strums more back here, and I always strum more up here. Obviously, it's because when I'm closer, look at how close where I'm picking here. And since he's more out here, it brings the guitar more out this way, and that's why he strums more behind the circle of the acoustic guitar. Now, the effect of that is the more closer you are back here, the tighter the strings are right here, okay? I strum more here, the strings are a bit looser, there's more give. Back here, they're tighter, okay? So I'm going to assume, I don't know this, but I would assume that he would probably have a pretty thin pick in order to be able to strum at the more tighter spot of the guitar here. I'm just assuming that. So again, you have my style here. Take a look at my right arm angle. It's tucked in here. It's 90 degrees. Thumb is above the middle finger. Fingers are out like this. Paul McCartney plays more out here. Thumb up here so you can see it behind the index finger. And his fingers are actually, they're not as curved. Mine are curved. His are a little more flatter. Curved, flatter. See, and that elevates your hand a lot right here too. So now, if I was to try to emulate this style right here, it's going to change the entire way that I play guitar. Once you change your style or your technique, it's going to change your sound. Okay? If I was to try to play like this out here, like he does, what this does for me, this is very unnatural for me. It's not, I don't play like this. Obviously, I play here. He plays out here. Now this is going to affect, if I was to go into an F chord, I'll show you an F chord, right here, right? That's an F bar chord. I can do it here. I'll get a little closer for you. I can do it very good right here, okay? Extended to where Paul plays it, I'm gonna show you. Look at my wrist angle. It is bent almost, like almost 90 degrees. For me, that's now see a lot more straight here, a lot more straight. Where Paul plays, look how much I'm bending. It's very awkward for me right now. There's tension on my wrist because it's stretching. There's tension on the top of my wrist right here because it's in an awkward position. And I'm also bending rotating my arm outward. Normally I play like this, right? Like this. Now over down here, I have to bend outward like that to also get that raised position with the thumb. So this is very awkward for me. It's normal for him, it's awkward for me. It would change my whole technique. And let me also show you. For me, okay, these are, for people that don't know, these are frets, 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 6, 2, okay? Here I can do a scale very easy. I'm holding the guitar as I would. I can go from the 1st fret to the 4th fret, index finger, pinky finger, no problem. Right? No problem. That's an easy stretch for me. If I was to play where Paul plays, down here, I can no longer make that stretch with my pinky to the 4th fret. It hurts because look at my wrist. It is just mangled. It's so curved. So this is going to change the way I play guitar. I no longer can do what I can normally do. If I have to try to emulate Paul, I can no longer do, scales down here. I would have to do a lot of this, which if you notice, Paul does do that. He goes like this a lot because he can't make that stretch because he's so down here. Okay, so now I would have to do a lot more work to do a scale in the 1st position. Why would I want to do that? I don't. That's why I don't play this way. And obviously, if I was to try and play down here, I'm going to play a lot more sloppier. Because now I'm strumming here as opposed to here, I'm going to be missing strings. Because my arm angle is really gibbled from my shoulder to my elbow, to my forearm, to my wrist, I can no longer do the things that I would normally do up here. So I'm going to be playing a lot more sloppier, and you're going to hear it in my playing. You will hear the difference. Totally. It's not something that I can adapt to. I can mimic it in a pose. give me 5 minutes. I can really get the right pose that he holds his guitar in, but I can't play like that. And for the people that would say, well, it's just a track playing, it's someone else playing. Okay, listen, guys. From a musician standpoint, we can hear and tell when there's a person playing live or not. We can hear when there's a lot of reverb or chorus or delay on a singer's vocals through the microphone. We can hear it. There's a certain reverberance and a certain sound that has to be made. I'll use drums as an example. When a person's playing the hi-hat and snare drum just like this, and you hear how loud the snare is when he's hitting, and then he goes into a fill, he hits it harder, pow, 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 pow. You're gonna hear a difference in volume, just like you would hear a difference in volume on the hi-hat, on the crash cymbals, on the toms. If you don't hear that, dude's not playing live. Just like with guitar, if you're strumming and then all of a sudden you're strumming heavier and you don't hear that increase in volume when a guitarist adjusts his playing style or starts to get loud or heavy, he's not playing live. You would hear it, okay? You can't fool an entire world for 56 years by not playing live. Musicians would see it, we would hear it. Okay, it's not something that can be pulled off. Okay, so to sum up, here's my style here. Here's my home with the C chord. You'll notice my thumb is where it is, and then you'll notice Paul is more down here, straighter right arm, picking more back here, fingers in, thumb raised behind the index. I cannot play like this at all. It's not something that can be done. My technique is different, my style is different. No, I could not emulate his technique live to play at all. There's no way it can be done. Okay? Okay guys, so as you can see, there was a difference between how I can hold my chords, obviously, between my type of C chord and Paul's type of C chord. My style here, my fingers out here, his are here. I just cannot play like that. There would be no way. So it stands to reason that, should Paul have died in 1966 and they replaced him with a lookalike who miraculously also plays guitar and bass and piano and drums and trumpet and percussion, left-handed, for the greatest musician possibly ever to die and then be replaced with the second greatest musician alive in order to do exactly what Paul can do is extremely, if not impossible, in my mind, as a logistically guitarist who's analyzing this very logically through matter-of-fact playing. It cannot be done, in my opinion. So let's run through exactly what needs to happen musically for this to be pulled off. Let's summarize everything that needs to be pulled off, because a lot of people don't realize this. They don't think, well, he died in 1966, so therefore it was pulled off. It can be done. Let's see what needs to be done. Let's summarize everything, okay? So from a performance musician's perspective on what would have to be pulled off in order to emulate another guitarist, for me or in general. Okay, so your arm angle, let's start with the right arm. Your arm angle has to be the same. The elevation of your guitar when you're standing has to be the same. Is it up here? Is it down here? Is it down here? Okay, so your arm angle has to be the same. Where when you're doing like chromatic chords, where is your thumb? Is it showing? Is it up here? The curvature of your fingers has to be the same. The way that you transition between frets has to be the same. Do you slide up the neck in a chord formation, or do you slide more like this, or do you slide with your chord already up here? There's lots of different factors to consider just with your right arm alone. All these angles and alignments have to be the exact same, okay? Left arm, you can't, if Paul picks like this, you can't pick like this. You can't have your fingers out. Your fingers have to be the same. You have to hold the pick with your thumb. Here, I'll even get the pick out. You have to hold your pick in a certain way, okay? I hold my pick like this. That's how I hold my pick, with about that much sticking out, right like that. and my fingers like that. You have to have your fingers in the same way, curved like that, or are they curved like that, or is one out, or do you do that? Do you hold your pick a lot more like this? Do you hold it more inward like that? Do you hold your pick outward like this as opposed to like this? Do you strum more with your shoulder and your forearm? Do you strum more with your with your forearm? Do you strum more with your wrist? There's all these factors just from your arms that you have to consider. Are they the same or are they different? Playing live, do you groove the same way? Do you head bob the same way? Do you go side to side the same way? Do you have facial expressions when you're playing a chord and do you pull off like this a lot, or do you go down, like strum down a lot like this? How are you grooving? Are you grooving with your feet? That all has to be the same thing too. So you have all these factors that all have to line up exactly how pre-1966 Paul did it, because people like me would observe this. Not only this, guys, like, in all honesty, you have to have the same vocal range. You have to have the same tone. You can't all of a sudden hit higher notes in 1968 or lower, or you can't hit the notes of pre-1966 Paul, and you can't have a lower range. Your voice has to be the same as well. You have to have the same range in when you're singing, the same vibrato, the same open throat technique. Everything has to sound the same. And no, you can't mimic this on stage. You can to a degree, but people like us we can hear it. We can tell when someone's not singing. We can tell when someone's singing on a track. We can hear it, you guys, okay? So again, all these factors need to be considered. Every type of technique with your right arm playing with your neck, with your fret, every technique and formation of your fingers, the way you hold your pick, the way you strum, your arm angle, it all has to be the same as pre-1966 Paul. And I cannot emulate that whatsoever. It cannot happen, okay? You can't emulate someone else's technique and playing style. It just can't be done. There's too many things that have to line up in order for someone to pull this off. And it's just not possible. This is coming from a left-handed guitarist myself. And I also play drums. I'm a multi-instrumentalist to a degree as well. There's just too many factors, guys. It would just be the most improbable of scenarios of all time to be able to pull this off. And not only that, you got to fool your family and you got to fool the reporters. And I'm not going to get into that. We're not going to go there, but from a musician standpoint, guys, all the footage, all the picks, all the live performances, it is the same person playing the bass and guitar pre-1966 as it was post-1966. It's the same person doing the same things in the same way that cannot be emulated by another person for so long. Okay, guys? So, sorry to say, but if anyone opposes this, I would love to hear from a potential, left-handed guitarist preferably. If we're gonna do this, let's do it right. If someone doesn't believe what I went through here, if they know, or if you are a left-handed guitarist and bass player and multi-instrumentalist who believes Paul died in 1966, make a video showing us that you can actually play exactly like Paul McCartney and hold his guitar and hold his bass, playing it in the exact same way he does pre-1966 and post-1966. Don't just talk about it happened because this and that. Prove it, like I just did right now. I just proved that musically I cannot emulate him, and I'm a left-handed guitarist. There's too many things that have to line up, you guys. There's just way too many. So, yes, it's the same person playing in 1965 as it is in 1970 or 2012. It's the same person, you guys. The same techniques are being used, okay? So, feel free to comment. Feel free to give me hate. Feel free to change your mind. Feel free to say whatever you want. Comment below. But I wanted to do this video to show you guys what it takes to pull this off musically. And in my opinion, it just cannot be done. There's just too many things you would need to do that people would notice. Okay, guys? Thanks for the video. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And I will be back another day to talk about another topic. Thank you, guys.